The Ministry of Health MOH has recommended to the Election Commission EC several SOPs for the GE15 so that it is held in the conditions of COVID-19 safe election. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said with the country's COVID-19 situation under control, his ministry is of the view that some of the restrictions imposed during the previous state elections can be relaxed, including the wearing of face masks and the right to vote for individuals tested positive for COVID-19.
Apabila saya melihat bahawa keadaan COVID sudah pun terkawal, saya telah maklumkan kepada TKP, Datuk Dr. Yati, bahawa pandangan saya yang perlu dibincang di peringkat pegawai adalah kita tak perlu ada lagi sekatan-sekatan yang seperti mana yang kita ada di Johor. Maksudnya kempen seperti biasa.
Elaborating further, Khairi said that MOH had considered the issue of voting rights in depth before making recommendations to the EC because it is enshrined in the Constitution. Therefore, he emphasized that any recommendations given to the EC also takes into account the interests of the public so that they are not harmed by the presence of COVID-19 patients. The upcoming general election is the best platform in placing young leadership in the future. In fact, GE15 is the first election that will involve over 1.139 million voters aged between 18 and 20, thus would greatly impact the national political landscape.
Kita perlu lebih memecahkan lebih tembok itu dulu supaya orang boleh merasakan bahawa politik ni sebenarnya sebahagian daripada keperluan hidup mereka. Jadi itu sebenarnya naratif kenapa undi 18 diperkenalkan. Bermakna dekat sini kita perlu lihat bahawa suara belia perlu diangkat. Mungkin suara anak muda dulu, mungkin senarai 29 daripada 30 senarai yang perlu didengari oleh pemimpin masyarakat atau pemimpin parti politik ketika itu. Tetapi sekarang dengan adanya undi 18, sudah pastinya suara belia diangkat tertinggi. Mungkin top 5, mungkin perkara prioriti yang perlu dilaksanakan oleh mana-mana parti politik yang ingin menjadi kerajaan dan juga mungkin parti pemerintah nanti perlu untuk meneruskan delegasi untuk mendengar sendiri suara belia kerana suara belia sebenarnya adalah satu ketumbukan besar di dalam proses demokrasi negara.
However, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Murshid added that efforts are needed to ensure the maturity of the young voters before they can be included in the country's democratic agenda. The request by Pulau Pinang DAP to review the decision not to dissolve the State Legislative Assembly to make way for the 15th general election will be discussed in the Pakatan Harapan PH Presidential Council meeting today. DAP Secretary-General Anthony Lock Siew Fook said there were several reasons for the Legislative Assembly to be dissolved, including the view of the Pulau Pinang public who wants the state election to be held simultaneously with GE15. He said the issue had been discussed in depth last night and the matter would be brought to the PH Presidential Council meeting for discussions. He noted that the meeting needs to take into account the opinion of the Pulau Pinang residents that refuse to go out to vote twice, which is the view that is widely broadcast through the media in the state. He also said the state DAP committee would be given until next Monday to submit the names of candidates that will be fielded in GE15. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food Industries, MAFI, continues its efforts to empower the country's seed industry to promote quality production. Its Secretary-General, Datuk Haslina Abdul Hamid, said MAFI continues supporting the efforts through various programs and initiatives that could benefit the local agro-food sector.
Bagi memacu memperkukuhkan industri benih tanaman di Malaysia, Jabatan Pertanian kita telah kementerian diperuntukkan lebih kurang 20 juta untuk pengukuhan dan juga pengeluaran benih tanaman yang berkualiti, dan kita juga ada dua skim, satu skim pengesahan bahan tanaman dan juga skim pengesahan benih padi yang dipertanggungjawabkan pada Jabatan Pertanian untuk melihat, untuk membangunkan dan memastikan benih yang digunakan untuk menghasilkan tanaman itu adalah berkualiti dan selamat untuk konsum oleh rakyat lah.
Datuk Haslina was met after officiating the international webinar Paving the Way for Seed Industry in Kuala Lumpur. To date, some 2,000 industry players and plant seed researchers from all over the world have joined the event, which was held in hybrid form. The program was organised by Agriculture Department in collaboration with MAFI in effort to boost idea and expertise sharing. The Ministry of Health, MOH, has identified 11,085 public health personnel to be assigned to help flood victims at temporary relief centres, PPS, nationwide. It involves medical health and mental health or psychosocial teams, which are crucial to help victims who face natural disasters.
6,397 daripada pasukan perubatan, 4,688 daripada pasukan kesihatan, 1,462 daripada pasukan mental health. Mereka dah tahu tugas mereka. Jadi soal Kementerian Kesihatan, saya daripada 2 bulan lepas dah, kita dah mula kesiapsiagaan untuk musim tengkujuh ni.
Speaking after officiating the disaster management seminar at the World Trade Center, Kuala Lumpur, he said there are many deployments in areas of states that often face floods such as Johor, Kelantan, East Coast states and Sarawak. As such, Khairi said the deployments of MOH personnel were made based on the risk mapping that they did. The Damansara Shah elevated expressway dash over 20.1 kilometres from Puncak Perdana to Penchala, heading to Federal Capital, is expected to be opened to the public soon. Project Lintasan Kota Holdings Sdn Bhd Pro Lintas Group Chief Executive Officer Datuk Muhammad Azlan Abdullah said the highway costing 4.2 billion ringgit can reduce the travelling time from Puncak Perdana, Shah Alam to Penchala, Kuala Lumpur from 90 minutes to 30 minutes. He said the highway, with a total length of 55.4 kilometres including the junction, has 13 intersections, namely Puncak Perdana, Alam Suria, Denai Alam, Kampung Melayu Subang, Pinggiran Subang, Subang 2, Lapangan Terbang Subang, RRIM, Kuasa Damansara, Surian, Section 5, Kota Damansara, Sunway Damansara, Damansara Perdana and Penchala. The daily traffic target is 50,000 vehicles per day and it is expected to reduce congestion in Perseran Mokhtar Dahari by 39%, Jalan Sungai Buloh by 33% and Perseran Surian by 43%. Construction of the highway began in August 2016 and was completed on 30th September 2022, while the concession starts on 25th December 2014 until 24th December 2069. It is also equipped with 37 closed-circuit cameras CCTV, 18 emergency telephones, 30 vehicle incident detection systems and 10 variable message signs along the alignment, as well as 2,441 light-emitting diode street lights. In our foreign segment, South Africa among 14 states elected into UN Rights Council. Global growth is expected to slow further next year, with the IMF downgrading its forecasts as countries grapple with the fallout from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, spiraling cost of living and economic downturns.
Is, about a third of the global economy is going to experience contraction, so that's quite significant. And to put this number in perspective, back in April, when we made our set of forecasts, we had only about 5% of the world economy that was expected to have a contraction in 2022 or 2023. So it went from 5 to 30, so that's a very significant difference.
In its report, the IMF trimmed its 2023 global GDP growth forecast to 2.7%, 0.2 point down from July expectations. Its world growth forecast for this year remains unchanged at 3.2%. The global growth profile is its weakest since 2001, apart from during the global financial crisis and the worst of the pandemic. This reflects slowdowns for the biggest economies, including a US GDP contraction in the first half of 2022 and continued lockdowns in China as it faces a property crisis. The world economy is expected to avert recession, but there is about a 1 in 4 chance that growth could slow to 2% or below. A key factor behind the slowdown is a policy shift as central banks try to bring down soaring inflation, with higher interest rates starting to take the heat out of domestic demand. The UN General Assembly yesterday elected South Africa, Algeria, Bangladesh, Belgium, Chile, Costa Rica, Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Maldives, Morocco, Romania and Vietnam to the Human Rights Council for a 3-year term starting 1st January 2023. Germany and Sudan also won second terms on the Geneva-based body, but South Korea and Venezuela failed to be re-elected. Along with South Korea and Venezuela, Afghanistan also failed to win a seat. The 47-member council cannot make legally binding decisions, but its decisions carry political weight and it can authorize inquiries. Candidates are elected in geographical groups. There were 2 competitive races yesterday among the Asia-Pacific and Latin American and Caribbean states to elect 14 members. Members cannot serve more than 2 consecutive terms. Observers said the election was important since it could tip the power balance within a deeply divided council. Vote counts have been getting closer on key issues. On last week, a Western-led coalition lost a call for a debate on accusations of Chinese abuses in Xinjiang by just 2 votes in a historic defeat. Investigations mandated by the Human Rights Council are sometimes later used before national and international courts. The European Union's Energy Commissioner hailed a long-term strategic partnership with Algeria as the bloc turns to Africa's biggest gas exporter to fill a gap left by Russian supplies. Europe's hunt for gas has become ever more urgent as winter approaches, but experts have cast doubt over Algeria's ability to boost output in the short term. EU Energy Chief Kadri Simpson is the latest in a string of top European officials to visit Algeria in search of more natural gas since Russia cut gas supplies to Europe in suspected retaliation against Western sanctions after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Algeria has helped Europe diversify its energy supplies by pumping more gas to Italy, which in July signed a deal to import billions more cubic meters via an undersea pipeline from the North African coast. Algerian Energy Minister Mohamed Arkab, speaking at an energy summit in the capital Algiers, attended by Simpson, said his country was a trusted supplier that always honors its contractual obligations. He added that Algeria was examining the possibility of laying high-voltage cables under the Mediterranean to export electricity to Europe, and that the country hopes to produce as much as 50% of its electricity from renewable sources by 2035. This week's Russian missile attacks on power plants threaten cities across Ukraine with blackouts, but many frontline communities have been under shell fire and without power for water for months. The winemaking and salt mining town of Bakhmut in the eastern region of Donetsk is still grimly defended by Ukrainian forces, but its desperate residents have been within range of Russian guns since May. Once home to 70,000 people, Bakhmut's tree-lined main streets are quiet and its concrete housing blocks are shell-scarred ruins. The residents on the east bank of the Bakhmuta River are increasingly isolated. Ukrainian sappers demolished the bridge linking the exposed east bank to the town centre on the west side to stall any Russian advance. But this has left civilians on the east side reliant on a muddy gangplank thrown down between murky waters and shattered concrete. They cross to claim pensions or fetch water and basic foodstuffs even as artillery fire erupts nearby. The dirt roads plied by military convoys were turned to mud, and the steep banks of the Bakhmuta that lead down to the makeshift pontoon make slick and treacherous than ever. The coronation of King Charles III will take place on 6 May next year at London's Westminster Abbey in a ceremony set to follow the traditional pageantry used for anointing monarchs over the last 1,000 years. Vowing to reflect the monarchy's historic traditions and its modern role, Buckingham Palace announced that King Charles's wife, Queen Consort Camilla, will also be crowned. The much-anticipated confirmation of the date comes just over a month after the death of King Charles's mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and speculation about when the ceremony might be held. Charles immediately became king when Queen Elizabeth died on 8th September. He also took over as head of state of 14 Commonwealth countries, including Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. The Queen, who was 96, passed away at her remote Scottish estate Balmoral after a year of declining health. World leaders attended her state funeral at Westminster Abbey before she was laid to rest after a ceremony at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle. Hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets to watch, with the same number queuing round the clock over 4 days to pay their final respects as her coffin lay in state. Similar crowds will be expected for the first coronation since 1953 and the accompanying display of closely choreographed pomp and pageantry. The spacecraft that NASA deliberately crashed into an asteroid last month succeeded in nudging the rocky moonlet out of its natural orbit, the first time humanity has altered the motion of a celestial body. Findings of telescope observation showed that the suicide test flight of the DART spacecraft on 26 September achieved its primary objective, which is changing the direction of an asteroid through sheer kinetic force. The DART mission also marked the world's first test of a planetary defense system designed to prevent a potential doomsday meteoroid collision with Earth. The celestial target of the DART flight was an egg-shaped asteroid named Dimorphos, roughly the size of a football stadium, orbiting a parent asteroid about 5 times bigger, called Didymos, once every 11 hours, 55 minutes. The aim was to fly the DART impactor vehicle directly into Dimorphos at about 22,531 kilometers per hour, creating enough force to shift the moonlet's orbital track closer to its larger companion. Comparison of pre- and post-impact astronomical measurements of the Dimorphos orbit around Didymos showed a 32-minute shortening of its trajectory, proving the exercise as a viable technique to deflect an asteroid from a collision course with Earth if such an asteroid were ever discovered. The Rosetta Stone stars in a new exhibition opening tomorrow at the British Museum, marking one of the most significant dates in Egyptology, 200 years after a French scholar finally cracked its code and deciphered hieroglyphs. The exhibition comes with the British Museum under pressure from some Egyptologists to hand the Rosetta Stone back to Cairo at a time when UK institutions are beginning to return to other countries' artifacts looted during the colonial era. Once seen as magical symbols unrelated to spoken language, Egyptian hieroglyphs were swathed in mystery for centuries until philologist Jean-François Champollion cracked their meaning in 1822. French troops had discovered the stone in the walls of an Egyptian fort in 1799 and gave it to British forces as part of a surrender agreement. The British Museum has displayed it since 1802. The basalt slab dating from 196 BC was so crucial because it has inscriptions of identical meaning in 3 languages: hieroglyphs, an ancient Egyptian vernacular script called Demotic, and ancient Greek, which provided the translation key. Yet, the anniversary exhibition is controversial to some. Egyptian archaeologist and former Antiquities Minister SAHIH recently released a petition for the return of the stone and other foreign-held treasures he considers stolen. However, the British Museum said that Egypt has never made a formal request for the Rosetta Stone's return. Coming up in sports, Real Madrid and Man City qualify for Champions League last 16. Super League 2022 champions Johor Darul Ta'zim JDT are 1 match away from ending the season as the Invincibles after extending their unbeaten run to 21 matches with a stylish 4-1 win over Kedah Darul Aman KDA FC at the Sultan Ibrahim Stadium in Iskandar Putri last night. Playing on home ground, the Southern Tigers were stunned when Wanja Ronald Ngah struck first blood for Kedah in the 45th minute, but JDT equalised through Bergson da Silva's penalty kick in the 50th minute. JDT, coached by Hector Bidoglio, then went ahead in the 63rd minute through a half volley by national striker Muhammad Shafiq Ahmad in the penalty box after receiving a pass from Muhammad Afiq Fazail. Muhammad Shafiq, who is a former Kedah player, tightened JDT's grip with the third goal in the 68th minute before Bergson wrapped up the proceedings with his second goal in the 89th minute, thus creating a new league scorer's record with a total of 27 goals. The result puts the JDT team just one game away from repeating their 2016 feat of ending the season as the Invincible, having confirmed the Super League title for the 9th time in a row earlier this month. The Southern Tigers are scheduled to go against Sabah FC on 15th October.
Sabah is playing really well. They are holding the second spot of the league from all the league. We know that they are coming here to fight and to try to beat us. But anyway, the unbeaten is the target, but we must to take out the press of the pressure to the players. Just thinking that here we must to think to grow up every game, to do as better we can every game, and to thinking what GDT means as a club, to try the best for this club. If we are in this mindset, I'm sure we will achieve the target.
A last gasp header by Real Madrid defender Antonio Rudiger rescued a 1-1 draw against Shakhtar Donetsk and secured their place in the knockout stage after the Ukrainian side had taken the lead in the Champions League early today. Shakhtar went ahead 1 minute into the second half when Bogdan Mikhailichenko found Alexander Zubkov unmarked in Real's box and the midfielder nodded home into the bottom right corner. The hosts were inches away from making it 2-0 in the 65th minute through striker Lassina Traore, but his shot from inside the 6-yard box bounced off the bar. 3 minutes later, Zubkov, who was also on target in last week's 2-1 defeat in Madrid, had another chance, but Real's Ukrainian goalkeeper Andriy Lunin managed to claw the ball away. Real stepped up their attacks in the final 20 minutes, but their shots continued missing the target. Eventually, Rudiger levelled 5 minutes into stoppage time by taking advantage of a neat pass from Toni Kroos to deny Shakhtar a famous victory. Real hold a 4-point lead in Group F over second place RB Leipzig, while Shakhtar slipped one place down to third on 5 points. In the last round of games, Shakhtar hosts Leipzig, which means that despite the draw, Real cannot finish lower than second and advance to the last 16 ahead of their next group game at Leipzig. Manchester City also found the going tough in the Champions League group stage early today, but battled through to a goalless draw against FC Copenhagen. That was enough to qualify for the knockout stage. Rodri thought he had given City the lead with 25-yard rocket in the 11th minute, but after a lengthy VAR check, the midfielder's goal was harshly disallowed for handball by Riyad Mahrez in the build-up. Edison had to tip over Lucas Ledraga's drive from just outside the area after City's defence were caught out of position moments later. After being denied by VAR, City would have benefited from the system in the 24th minute, winning a penalty after a replay check of Nikolai Boyleston's handball when he blocked Manuel Akanji's header. However, Mahrez was unable to convert the spot kick as Kamil Grabara dived to his right to make a fine save. With Erling Haaland rested on the bench ahead of City's trip to Liverpool on Sunday, the Premier League champions failed to score for the first time in 24 games in all competitions. City had to be satisfied with avoiding defeat after playing with 10 men for an hour. Pep Guardiola's men got their reward just hours later when they advanced to the knockout stage with 2 games to spare, thanks to Borussia Dortmund's 1-1 draw against Sevilla in the other Group G fixture. Elsewhere, Chelsea completed the double over AC Milan to top Champions League Group E with a 2-0 victory at San Siro, a match the hosts had to play the majority of with 10 men. Looking to build on a 3-0 win over the Italians last week, Chelsea's task in Milan's famous Old Stadium was made all the more navigable after home defender Fikayo Tomori was sent off against his former club when conceding a 17th-minute penalty. Jorginho converted from the spot after Milan's protests had calmed down, before striker Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored for the third successive match in all competitions to double Chelsea's lead in the 34th minute. With the numerical disadvantage, chances were at a premium for Milan in the second half, full-back Sergio Dest wasting the best of them by blazing over from a good position. Chelsea remained mostly untroubled though, with the victory moving them to 7 points from 4 matches, a point ahead of RB Salzburg and 3 in front of Milan and Dinamo Zagreb. In tennis, Andy Murray moved on to the second round of the Gijon Open yesterday with a 7-5, 6-2 win over Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Under pressure early from Davidovich Fokina, Murray found a moment of magic to trigger a stunning turnaround at the ATP 250 event in Spain. Davidovich Fokina had come out firing in front of his home fans as he dominated the early exchanges against Murray. His heavy ground strokes had the Briton scrambling in defence as the Spaniard opened a 4-2 lead. Then came Murray's crucial intervention as he moved to his right to intercept Davidovich Fokina's powerfully driven backhand pass and deny the Spaniard a double break lead. Murray's escape appeared to invigorate him, and the Britons dialed in. Returning helped him convert 5 of 9 break points from that point on as he charged to an impressive victory. The win improved the Murray's record for the 2022 season to 24-16. The 35-year-old, who has reached finals in Sydney and Stuttgart this year, is chasing his first tour-level title since he triumphed in Antwerp in 2019. He now faces the winner of today's match between Pedro Cachin and Alexei Vatutin. With that, we end today's updates at noon. In our top story, Health Ministry recommends SOP for COVID-safe election. Tune into news at 10 coming up at 10 p.m. on My Freeviews, saluran Berita RTM channel 123. You can also stream the channel via YouTube or RTM's Click web portal and mobile app. Thank you for watching. I'm Renee Fong, salam keluarga Malaysia, and have a pleasant afternoon.